There's an ancient idea shared across many spiritual traditions that the world is not only made of matter, it's also made of word. Long before modern philosophy, long before psychology, long before political theory, the ancient Hebrew tradition understood something very profound about human life. That words are not simply sounds that we make to communicate. Words are forces. Words shape reality. Words move history. Words build worlds, and they can destroy them. Your words have the power to create life and to destroy life, to spread light and to condemn things to darkness. Your words, the breath that carries your energy and your life force, your creative God spark within, has the power to create anything that it speaks, anything that it believes, anything that it carries the magic on. In the Hebrew Bible, the word that is most often translated into English as word is the Hebrew word Davar. And the meaning of that is much more richer than we think when we think of the word word. In Hebrew thought, Davar can mean a word, but it can also mean a thing, a matter, an event, an action, and even creation itself. In other words, a word and a thing are not separate ideas. A word is something that happens. A word is something that becomes real. Speech is not passive. Speech is creative. Speech is something that moves from thought into the world and begins shaping what the world becomes. That's important. In the past, you've heard me say a couple of things. You've heard me say the words, peace is not passive. And you've also heard me on occasion reference the term I am. So I'm going to connect the dots between speech not being passive and peace not being passive, and dig a little deeper into those words I am and what that means in reference to the word, in reference to speech. You see, this idea right at the beginning of the Bible, the creation story, it does not describe the universe being built with tools or weapons of force. Nothing in this world is created through force. Instead, the pattern repeats itself again and again and again. And God said, and it was so. Light appears because it was spoken. Order emerges because it is spoken. Creation unfolds through Davar, through word becoming reality. From the very beginning, the tradition is telling us something important. Speech participates in creation. When we want to create something, we have to speak it. It comes from the vision realms, from thought, and is carried on the breath, our life force, into reality, and it shapes, our word shapes what the world becomes. And this idea becomes even more powerful when we look at the story of Moses and the burning bush. When Moses encounters the burning bush, he asks a question that all of us would probably eventually want to know, right? Up until this point of the Bible, or people encountering God or divinity, they had their own words for what they would call God. But this is the defining moment where someone actually asked divinity, "What is your name?" And divinity answered with its name. When he encounters that burning bush, he asks him. He asks something greater than just his human self. He asks divinity, "Who are you? Who is this presence that I'm speaking with? Who is calling me to confront the most powerful empire of all time? Who is this? Who are you?" And he receives this mysterious answer. In Hebrew, the voice says, Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. And that's usually translated into English as I am that I am. And we use this in a very powerful way because this is God speaking its own name. This is source energy saying, this is who I am. And if we understand that we have God's spark within us, that we're all from source energy, then we can use that name and invoke it and manifest and create. But let's take that deeper. It's usually translated as I am who I am. But when you look closely at the Hebrew, something deeper begins to emerge here. The verb tense is not fixed in the present the way that English makes it sound. It carries a sense of movement and continuation. It's the tense that's important when you translate this phrase, because it's actually more accurately translated as I will be what I will be, or even I am that which I will become. And this is so important. This is extraordinary because the divine name given here is not a rigid, fixed in time, even present moment kind of definition. It's not a label, it's a process. It suggests movement, unfolding, becoming. The name itself implies that creation is not finished. Reality is still developing. History is still evolving. Life itself is still becoming. And that has enormous implications for how we understand our place in the world. If the divine name reveals a universe that's still unfolding, that's still evolving, then human beings are not simply passive observers in a finished creation. We are participants in something that's still being shaped. This is very important with what is happening right now, because we have those people who are finding peace with understanding that there's a greater plan. Yes, there is. We understood before incarnating the things that we signed up for, the experiences that we would have. But I also want you to understand that what you signed up for was a free will process that would bring you through different paths, different experiences, and different timelines. That's what makes us human, is the fact that we have free will. And what if the only reason that things happen is because of our free will? What if good things happen because of our free will choices and the words that we speak? What if negative things happen because of our free will choices and the negative things that we speak? And what if help only comes because of our free will choices? What if we are affecting all the people around us through our free will choices? Can you imagine if we were all complacent and quiet and sat back and said, this is God's will, so there's nothing to be done, while people who are exercising their free will choices are slowly destroying the world? It's good to find peace in a higher plan. Yet peace is not passive. Peace is creative. Peace takes action, even if it's just through the action of word. Keep in mind, even if we go back to this story, okay, like this is God, source energy, coming to Moses and saying, I need you to go free all of the slaves from Egypt. And Moses is like, bro, like I have a stutter, I can't even talk, and you want me to go to the king and tell the king, yes, sir, I want you to let my people go. And he's just gonna do it? Like, what's gonna happen here, right? There's an entire story unfolding here, because God could have walked in and just freed everybody, right? But God doesn't do that because we have free will. So instead, God said, hey, Moses, I need you to do something. Now, you can exercise your free will. You can do this if you want. You don't have to do it, but I'm just guiding you that this thing probably needs to be done for the good of all people, for peace on the planet, for peace on earth. And it is done. And it has changed and shaped history. Let's really sit with what comes next in the story, because it was like source energy was hearing the cries of those enslaved people, the cries of the hurting, the broken. And that, like I said, that oppression could have ended instantly. Pharaoh could have been struck down in a moment, and the entire system could have collapsed through an overwhelming act of divine power. But that's not what happens. Instead, God calls a human being a shepherd, a reluctant shepherd. And Moses immediately protests. He says he's not the right person, that people won't listen to him. He even says he doesn't speak well enough to carry the message. And he's trying to step away from the responsibility being placed before him. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Stepping away from your responsibility of humanity? So what does God do when he tries to step away from his responsibility? His overwill is not overrode by divine power. God does not force him into obedience, but God works through his freedom. When Moses says he can't speak well, God provides Aaron to stand beside him and help him speak. The task still belongs to Moses. The choice is still Moses' choice. The liberation of an entire people unfolds through human courage, human action, and human speech. This reveals something profound about the nature of creation itself. If the divine name is, I will be what I will be, then the future is not set in stone nor predetermined. Creation is not a finished script that humanity simply acts out. Creation continues to unfold through the decisions that human beings, like you and me, make. Our choices. We can choose to help the people around us. We can choose to be kind. We can choose to take action. Because this is where the story challenges something that we often hear people say. When terrible things happen in the world, people sometimes say it must be God's will. God put this person in charge for a reason. But the story of Moses suggests something extremely different. Much of what happens in the world is not the will of God at all. God had nothing to do with it. Bad people exercising their free will choice had something to do with it. It's the result of human beings using their free will to harm, to dominate, to exploit, to control others. And just as importantly, suffering often continues when other human beings use their free will to avoid courage. They say, this must be part of a grand design, or it's not my place to intervene. What can I do? But the story of Moses does not celebrate passivity. It celebrates responsibility, creativity, courage. The divine name itself reveals that creation is still unfolding, but that unfolding happens through the choices that human beings make. This is where the idea of Davar becomes powerful again, that word. Words shape societies. Words shape laws. Words shape movements. Before injustice can be challenged, someone must first name that injustice. Before people become free, someone must speak the truth that freedom is possible. Peace itself is not passive. Peace is something that must be created. It must be spoken. It must be defended. It must be practiced. History changes when someone finally says the thing everyone else is afraid to say out loud. History changes when someone refuses silence. That is the power of word becoming reality. And this brings us back to the idea of the magic word. If you want to change the world, if you are not happy with how the world is, if you do not feel at peace, you must be creative with your voice. This is something that you get to speak, that you get to say. Even that idea that time is evolving with us, that God simply says, I am that which I will become to a human, knowing that that human has free will choice, implies that we evolve through our experiences with divinity, that we become who we're going to become, that we live destiny through our free will choices, that all of our experiences help us come closer to our inner divine one. All of our experiences, the accumulation of all of our choices and our individual choices, show us where God lives inside of us. Do you understand how profound that is? Your free will choices and how it evolves over life, the experiences you have with other people, the experiences you have with yourself, the experiences you have on this earth are bringing you closer and closer and closer to divinity, because God evolves through us and through our choices. And right now, the collective is working on that throat chakra. All of us. That's what we're here doing right now. So when we want to make change, when we want to use the word as a creative force, because that's what it is. Words are creating something, they're orchestrating something. Even through the speaking of this video, I am creating something in you. And it's up to you what that is. I'm hoping to create courage, to spark light, for you to understand that the words that you speak are important. And so let's talk about the magic word here. The magic word is not a secret syllable or a mystical spell. It's something simple yet powerful. That magic word we're going to use today is create. Create. Creation is something that you do. It is an action. And if you want to create joy, then we speak it into existence. If we want to create light, then we speak it into existence. If we want to create peace, we will speak it into existence and defend it with our words, with honesty, with clarity, with responsibility, and holding people responsible. So we're going to create. We're going to create truth, create justice, create dignity, create compassion, create the kind of future that does not yet exist, but could exist if people chose to build it. The divine name tells us that reality is still unfolding, but that unfolding happens through human participation, through our courage, through our actions, through the words that we choose to create together. Because in the end, we become what we practice. And if we practice courage, courage grows. If we practice compassion, compassion grows. If we practice silence in the face of harm, silence becomes part of who we are, and harm grows. Creation is not something that only belongs to the distant past or to the other people. Creation is happening right now through every decision you and I make, and how we treat each other. And right now, in this place and time, complacency is the opposite of creation. Choosing not to speak, not to create, not to act is allowing. Being passive is not what's bringing peace. Being passive is not what is creating a beautiful world. Creation begins within us. I will be what I will be as I continue to evolve through my choices, through my actions, through my interactions with others, with humans, with the earth. I know God through my choices. I know heaven through my choices. And the future of that becoming is shaped by what we choose to create. Because we are what we do. And what we create, we will become. I'm Mary Colozzo. Welcome home.